Ambassador Meitsad, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. End of the year of a very tough year for Israel, and not just only for Israel, for the whole region. We are talking about the war against Hamas. Today is 73rd?
74, but
Maybe,
I have to say that it's
like
been long. It's more
yeah.
than 70 days. At some point when a war is prolonging so much.
Yeah. And war is still going on. We've been following and monitoring the attitudes, dynamics also towards this war. In the beginning and now. The death toll is very high. And in general, I mean, both sides. But what has changed is that Israel is more and more criticized because of this high number of civilian casualties. And criticized, blamed from the close partners, kind of caution also. Comes some kind of caution from the US president, for instance. What is your observation of an ambassador of Israel?
Thank you, Dino, for having me and for giving me this opportunity. I will say that yes, it has been a very long war. In my lifetime as an Israeli, I don't recall any war that lasted that long, and it will continue until we will reach the two goals of this war, which is to defeat Hamas, to ensure that they will no longer pose a threat not to Israel and not to the Palestinian residents of Gaza as well, and the return home of each and every one of our hostages. We still have 130 hostages for more than 70 days in the hand of Hamas. They are always dynamic, and of course the situation is evolving and developing as we fight this war. And war is also not an easy or clean affair. I mean, in Israel, to wake up almost every morning and to receive the name of the soldiers that died during the last 24 hours while combating Hamas terrorists in Gaza, one can understand how it affects a nation that on October 7 was, in one day, lost 1,200 people, which is, I'm always saying, not just a number, but also the manner, the savage barbaric attack, this spring of sadism and cruelty. And then, yes, the fact that we find ourselves into war. Referring to your question about the international stand, here I think that we should be very, very listening to what is being said from the mouth itself. Jack Sullivan, the United Nations National Security Advisor, was just in Israel last week. And the United States of America is very much involved as a friend, as a partner in the event of the war and in the plans ahead. But it is an Israeli war, and there is a full support by the United States for Israel to finish, meaning to ensure that Hamas is no longer controlling and ruling this part of the world. The last Sunday, there was an article, a joint article by Foreign Secretary Cameroon and his German counterpart. Mm-hmm. And they said something, I think that I thought that this is really important for people to notice, because they said, I'm not quoting directly, but basically they said, of course we all want to see a sustainable ceasefire, but to call on Israel to stop immediately, to have at this point in time a ceasefire, meaning that, one, that we forgot why Israel is in this war to begin with, and second, it won't be sustainable. It won't lead to any sustainable ceasefire, peace in the region, to just seize at this moment.
I will go back to the ceasefire issue too. But as for the goals, Israeli goals, and the main one goal is to defeat Hamas, and another one is to release hostages. First, do you have enough information about those hostages? Whether they are alive, how are they, where are they? Because we know that several days ago there was a tragic incident. Hostages were killed by a friendly fire from Israeli soldiers. Yeah, there is no war. There is no war which is simple, just, and there is no sense of comparing also statistics, but still. Statistics on casualties, but it still matters, of course. First, could you please answer about hostages, information on hostages? Of course, I understand which can be said publicly.
I will give you a very frank answer. Yeah. There is an ongoing intelligence effort to collect as much information as possible. Do we have all the information? No. You can see that every now and then the IDF is informing some of the families that their loved ones were considered to be hostages, that we came across information that unfortunately they are no longer alive. Some of the hostages were taken alive, were kidnapped alive from Israel, and they were murdered by Hamas while they were in captivity. And as the operation is moving forward, more and more information is being revealed. Do we have all the information? For sure, no. And you mentioned a very, very tragic incident that took place on Friday night. An event that, you know, as Israel, there is nothing to say, because I'm certain, without knowing who were the soldiers, that what they want more than everything is to release hostages. But they are in a combat zone, under constant manipulation and different attempt to attract them into different ambushes by the terrorists of Hamas. And this event ended up in the most tragic way that we could have ever imagined. So we don't have all the information. I will also add that Hamas has been doing a lot of psychological terror, that they are releasing footage of the hostages. Just to mention a few, Hamas declared already, I think 2 weeks ago, that Kfir and Ariel Bibas, the young boys with strong red hair, and the mother, the youngest Israeli, the youngest, I think, in the world hostage. I mean, 2 days ago he turned 11 months. He was taken when he was 9 months old. He celebrated his 11 months 2 days ago. So they informed us that they died, and then they also showed a video of the father who is also in captivity. It was a horrible video. We have seen yesterday, they released another videos of elderly people, of men from Kibbutz Nir Oz in their late 70s, in their 80s. We don't have words to this level of cruelism, to this psychological warfare with the families. To your second question about the casualties, well, you're right. It's not about the numbers, and the numbers.
Every human life matters.
Every human life matters,
and every innocent human life.
You're very right. Every human life matters. From the beginning of the war, we have been doing every effort that we can to evacuate the non-combatant, the non-involved population of Gaza from the areas where the combat is taking place. For us, every loss of life, every Palestinian who is losing their life because they got caught in the crossfire between the IDF and Hamas terrorists is a tragedy. For us, it's a tragedy. For Hamas, unfortunately, it is tragedy. We see how this is their strategic plan to increase the pressure by having a high number of civilian casualties. And why do I say it? Because if we already exposed 1,500 tunnels, and we are seeing that most of them are under schools and under mosques and in the vicinity of UN facilities. I mean, every place that is supposed to be hospitals, of course, it's supposed to be safe and to play. I will say just one more thing, and then if you're looking at up until now, we have more than 13,000 rockets and missiles that have been fired toward Israel. We are seeing rockets and missiles being fired from the safe zones. I mean, the places where the population is going to receive humanitarian aid and to places where no combat is taking place, Hamas is coming there to continue launching the rockets. So again, for us, it's a tragedy. They look at it as a strategy.
Just to finish this, I don't like this word, but the statistics part, because I don't like statistics when it's about nobody likes, I guess, human lives. You don't trust Hamas statistics on casualties. Do you try to produce your own one about civilian casualties?
Not at the moment. We don't have the ability to do it at the moment, as far as I know. But you are saying that if Hamas to begin with would have said, among the general number, here are the people that belong to Hamas, the terrorists, and here are civilian casualties, but they are putting numbers and claiming that each and every one of the people that was affected by the war, they're all civilians. And this is basic logic is defeating this one. Even before saying, and I'm sure that you heard me say it before, but the same way that we didn't take ISIS word. How can I take the word of a terror organization that its aim is to kill, that now suddenly they are a reliable source of information?
So you cannot do that yourself?
No.
Just to have... but we are talking about thousands.
We're talking about high numbers. I'm sitting and I'm being very frank. Yes, we're talking about high numbers. We're talking about a war, a very cruel war, against an enemy that is literally hiding behind its people. I mean, the term human shield, which is, by the way, not just something that Israel is claiming, but the UK, the United States, the EU, they all acknowledge the fact that Hamas is using its own population as human shield.
As for the UN, there is another resolution, draft resolution being negotiated on they formulated it like suspension of fight, suspension of fire for the humanitarian reasons. And Israeli president said yesterday, if I'm not wrong, that Israel is ready for another ceasefire to try again to release hostages. But yeah, that goal is clear. What about the humanitarian assistance providing to those people who are there?
So on a daily basis, we have hundreds of trucks that are entering into the Gaza Strip. I believe the number is more than 5,000 trucks since the beginning of the war that are bringing with them thousands of tons of medical supply and food and water and tents and warm clothing. We are seeing a lot of those things. We are seeing Hamas people that are, that instead, again, it goes into not helping the population, but they are in the business of stealing the aid that is coming in order for them, for Hamas to be able to maintain its killing machinery. The humanitarian assistance is not only coming from, it's entering from Rafah, but the checkup is also taking place at Kerem Shalom, which is an Israeli crossing, just to demonstrate, I mean, the fact that we are doing everything we can in order to assist in facilitating the interests of humanitarian aid. Now, what Herzog said, what President Herzog said was that we are winning, and this goes back to the goal of this war. For us, defeating Hamas and release the hostages. So yes, if again there will be a reliable deal proposal on the table, Israel will do whatever it can do in order to see release of more of our hostages. But to the UN resolution, which I'm not updated about, the latest text because it's still in a close negotiation.
Published,
but any resolution that is just calling for immediate suspension of all the fighting, this will not. Cannot be acceptable on us, and it won't contribute to any future stability of the region.
Yeah, it's about calling for urgent suspension of hostilities. The resolution cites deep concern at the dire and rapidly deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza and its grave impact on civilians there. Actually, they reaffirms the Council's strong concern for the disproportionate effect the conflict is having on women and children, and stresses the obligation to respect and protect humanitarian relief and medical staff. Actually, it should not be, and takes note of the reopening of the Karem Abu Salem and Kerem Shalom crossing from Israel to speed up delivery of aid. Actually, there shouldn't be needed and necessary to have Security Council resolutions or some other stuff to provide.
No, they don't need. And let's also remember, Security Council is a very distinguished organ, but at the end of the day, it's a very political organ. We're talking about 15 countries that are coming with their own political views to the table. We have Russia, we have China.
All mixture of interests.
It's. I mean, the UN, at the end of the day, is a political organ that is maybe. It's the best that we have at the moment, because ever since World War II, but it's not free of faults and faults. I mean. Yeah,
that's another topic. I mean, the need to reform the UN. It became very active since the full-scale war started. Russia started full-scale war against Ukraine. So, but we don't have time now. I would go to the issue of defeating Hamas. What does it mean? Where is the point? Do you have any, how to say, I understand it's not easy, but any image of the point and situation when Israel will say that Hamas is defeated? Does it mean eliminating and eradicating all the Hamas and Hamas-linked people in Gaza, in the world? I don't know.
It means that Hamas is no longer able to rule and control this territory, to pose a threat to Israel. This is basically the defeat of Hamas. And I think that we have examples. I mean, from the war of the coalition against ISIS. I don't think that ISIS disappeared completely as an idea by crazy radical people that still exist in different parts of the world. But ISIS is no longer an organization that is holding a territory and able to attack and to oppress people and to attack and to carry out terror attacks in its territory and all over the world. We're talking also about suffocating Hamas financially. A few days ago, France hosted an international conference. There were more than 20 countries present, including Israel, to discuss the ways and the means that is needed in order to start dealing with preventing and tackling the financing issue. How do you ensure that the terror organization like Hamas, we know that Hania and Mashal and all the leadership that is sitting in Qatar, that they are billionaires, and this is another important matter that need to be addressed.
Yeah, there are quite a few things to be addressed. I know being in the war, for a country being in the war, and also forming and planning some kind of future situations and orders is not an easy task, of course. It hasn't been so far between Israel and Palestine. So Gaza will be neither Hamastan nor Fatahstan. That's Benjamin Netanyahu's words. And he also said that he will not allow Israel to repeat the mistake of Oslo Accords, right? So what are we talking about now? What kind of future do you imagine for your country, being there where it is now, and being side by side Palestine, and also what about this two-nation, two-state solution issue? What is your attitude towards that kind of solution now?
Gaza need to go through Gaza in the future need to go through two main processes. One is demilitarization. At the end, the Gaza Strip, the Palestinians, should govern themselves. We said it many times. We have no business. I mean, we don't plan to reoccupy. We don't plan to rule the Gaza Strip. The Palestinians will have to rule themselves. Israel will need to have security guarantees. But they need to go through a process of demilitarization of the Gaza Strip. And the second one is de-radicalization. And here we're talking also about the West Bank. Because if we are more than 2 months since October 7 appeared, and yet President Abbas and none of his government condemned what Hamas did. But what we are saying is the opposite. They are telling us that Hamas is part of the family. There was a very interesting poll that came out by a Palestinian poll maker, Khalil Shkaki. His office is in the West Bank, that talked about a growing support to Hamas among the Palestinians in the West Bank, but also the fact that 85% of the population there didn't watch none of the footage of October 7. Meaning that to deny the facts, I mean, not to handle and not to even willing to see and to understand what is it about, this is a very challenging situation, to say the least.
Yeah.
I am saying that we will need to see a process of de-radicalization, a process where the Palestinian society understand that Israel is here to stay, that the conversation should be about coexistence and not about elimination, eradication, etc., etc.
Who Israel envisages to talk with? Who do you consider is representing Palestine and Palestinian people?
I think that at the moment this is a less relevant question. I mean, it's up to the Palestinian. It's not up to me. If I, as Israel, will start saying who is yes and who is no, you will criticize me.
Which Palestinians?
I need at the end of the day a Palestinian leadership that is fighting against radicalization among its own society, that is governing their own territories in a way that is not posing a threat to Israel. But I don't think that Israel should be the one naming and deciding, because then you will criticize me and you will tell me, why are you choosing? It has to be the Palestinian society has to choose for itself its leadership and the role forward. And if I may, also to add another thing about the future of the Middle East. Defeating Hamas is essential because Hamas is an obstacle to any kind of coexistence and peace. And again, I'm going to people also here in Georgia, where I see in some circles.
We'll go to this that issue.
But I want to say, so I want to connect it to something else. If you go to this, Iran is also part of the problem. Iran is a main part of the problem when you're looking at Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And when we are talking about the future Middle East, Iran is part of a problem. It's not part of any solution, and this also needs to be addressed by the international community as we move forward.
When you are mentioning Palestinians, who do you imagine? Today, in the best case, these are people who, in the best case, in this situation of war, who rescued themselves and are refugees. In the worst case, who are under bombing and dying. And who would expect from the Palestinian people today to reform society, de-radicalize, or whatever?
But let me ask you this.
It's kind of very vague, at least to say.
I'm not saying that it is, but let me ask you this. On October 6th, there was a ceasefire. Hamas carried out one of the brutal, if not the most, it will be short, terror attacks that we have seen. We were forced into this war to defeat Hamas. If I will not complete the job, and if I will not uproot Hamas from the Gaza Strip, this cycle will continue. This radicalization will continue. What will happen if Hamas will come out from this with the upper hand? What kind of message will it send not only to the Palestinians, not only to my region, but all over the world, to extremism and terrorism? So yes, I mean, at the moment I agree with you. It's not that clear. There is a lot of dust, and I cannot give you a crystal clear answer. But I can say that if I want to break the cycle, if I want to have a future which is less radicalized, the first thing I have to do is to ensure that Hamas is no longer the one in charge in the Gaza Strip.
I think you have already started answering those people who are, and that's natural when people have this information about high number of casualties among civilians and this sense of solidarity towards the most vulnerable. During the wars and this particular war. And we've seen also petition quite recently this month, I think, of not only Georgians signing, but it was published in the Georgian media platform. Do you think it is it matters to answer this type of petitions?
It matters.
It says, I'm sorry,
yes.
Just to put it, we do not condone collective punishment of all Palestinian people for the violent actions of Hamas on 7th October. We demand an immediate ceasefire, a release of all hostages, a release of all people in administrative detention, including child prisoners, an end to genocide, an end to apartheid, an end to occupation.
Okay. First, I will say that it's important for me to answer to each and every Georgian who is calling my country to do this and this. I mean, generally speaking, my job here as an ambassador is to have conversation, and I'm always inviting even the people who are most critical to Israel on different social media, that my door is always open to come to sit and to talk. I mean, this is because I truly believe in this. This petition, I will say several things. I mean, I think that there is here a mixture of things, and this is why it's becoming less credible petition the way I see it. It is natural. You said it very right. It's natural. You see the footage. You hear about the number. And we all want immediate ceasefire tomorrow morning. I mean, this is what we would like to live in, a world that without any wars. I mean, as I said at the beginning, it's also not easy for us as a nation to be in war for such a long time. But one has to ask himself, and this, again, I'm going exactly to the article by Foreign Secretary Cameron and Birnbach, the German Foreign Minister. If we will stop now, it won't be sustainable and the violence will continue. Let's say that I'm stopping now. What will happen? Will Hamas disarm? Will Hamas humanitarily will say, okay, all the hostages can now go home? The only thing that will happen is that Hamas will use the time, the period, to rearm, to regroup, and to try to do it again, because this is their goal. And I think that in this petition, also the mixture between releasing the hostages and calling for a ceasefire and then going into apartheid and genocide, and this is where they got the facts completely wrong. Because there is no genocide, because there is no apartheid. And I think that to put it all into one petition and to trying to, and just by putting it to claim that it's happening, it's completely false. I think that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is complicated, and there is a big difference between the war against Hamas and between the plea for a Palestinian state, which is a political argument that is being handled for many, many long years and will continue. But what has been happening now in Gaza is a war against terror. This is what is taking place.
To make maximally proper and adequate decisions for the future, for the present, for the future, is to analyze properly why the 7th October happened. I understand you may not go into details publicly, but do you know more, much more, or something, some details of why did it happen? Didn't you know that this, you know about this, knew about the threat, but still,
the why is simple. The why, because this is Hamas agenda. And going back to your previous question, I just have to add that all the people that really cares about the people in the Palestinian people, which I fully understand, and again, I mean, every death is a tragedy. What I think that they should be calling first and foremost is for the release of Gaza from Hamas in order to stop this 16-year cycle of operations that taking place. And now,
I don't think they are in a position doing that. But anyway,
people,
I'm not
if you're
there.
signing a petition and you're trying to,
you mean petition?
Yes, I'm talking about people who are signing a petition and want to be part of a cause for a better future. I think that first and foremost, they need to also look at the fact that the Palestinian living in Gaza has been oppressed for 16 years, and they're one of the most radical terrorist organizations that exist. To your second question, that I need you to remind me. Because
Actually, the last one. Yeah.
The second question was the second
part. Was about the 7th of October.
Why it happened. Okay.
Why couldn't it be avoided? This catastrophic and tragic
trust me, Nino,
eruption
if it could have been avoided, every morning when I wake up, when I'm sure most of the Israeli wake up, you wake up and again you realize that October 7 happened and that we are in this situation. There is not a person in Israel that wish that it would have been presented. Why it happened, it's easier for me to tell you. Why? Because this is what Hamas stands for, elimination of Israel. And this is what they've been saying out loud after it, that in every chance that they will have, they will try to carry out as horrific terror attack as they can in order to kill as many more Israelis. And Khalid Mashal from Qatar is talking about imagining the day after in the Middle East where Israel does not exist. The why in the sense of how come it happened to us, more and more information is being collected, I will say, in Israel, because also there are many families that, of course, demand answers, and the government, the country, the state.
That was my question about why it couldn't be avoided.
They owe them an answer. The day after the war, there will be a thorough investigation, and there will be public conclusion. We all know it, but at the moment,
only after the war.
Only after the war. But
you don't think you need some kind of decisions?
I think that it's not possible to do it now. From knowing how we are doing it, at the end I will need all the chief commanders. I will need so many people that at the moment busy fighting and winning this war, and I cannot start the investigation. I know how we did it after the Second Lebanon War, after how we did it after either major events or incidents that took in Israel. You need people to sit down and to start a full process of investigation. You cannot do it when you're fighting a war. But I'm always saying there will be an investigation, first and foremost because the Israeli public is asking for answers, as we should. I mean,
you say will be.
I'm saying that there will happen after the war. That the fact that I'm saying it's not happening now, it will happen after the war, I'm not saying it as a way to wash it down. I'm 100% that this will take place because I'm part of the Israeli society, public, and this is our way. This is our way in a democratic society. In this contract between the state and the citizens. Answers need to be given. No, 100% sure about it.
Okay, but still, this is the war Israel cannot go for long alone. It depends, Israel needs support in this war. And I think some quite difficult phases and time will come also in these terms. Don't you think so?
I think that, as I said, every war, every conflict has its dynamic. At the moment, we're still enjoying the support that we need because the world leaders, and also, by the way, the majority of the public in the leading Western state, I will put it like this, fully understand what is it that we are doing, fully understand that Hamas has to be defeated, and we cannot stop the war before that. Because otherwise, the implication on the future of the Middle East will be much worse.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we can stop here this time. And
thank you very much.